Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Soul Brother coming to you. I haven't been on here in a while. A lot has happened. Some things out of my control, some things very good. But I wanted to run this by you. Today is Juneteenth, June 19th, 2023. And I wanted to put together a quick program paying homage to Juneteenth. I think it's very, very important. First, I want to give a shout out to Miss Opal Lee, who would be deemed as the grandmother of Juneteenth because she succeeded in convincing President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to have make Juneteenth a national holiday. So that was made official last year in 2022, and here we are um, celebrating and recognizing Juneteenth in 2023. We plan to do this beyond. To those people who are Texan folk, you born and raised in Texas, this is nothing new to you. Um, this is something that you've been um, doing all of your life. And from what I understand, Juneteenth was made official in Texas way back in the day. But first, we want to say what is it about Juneteenth that's significant? And why should we as black folks in America recognize Juneteenth? Well, it goes something like this. Um, even though um, we fought in the Civil War uh, to make things change in terms of our status, going from enslaved to free. Um, so I understand that it was made known in Galveston, Texas, um, that black folks were free, even though Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863, January 1863. Um, the people in Texas got word of this in 1865. I know, 2 years later. And it was on January 19th, 1965. So that's why it's called Juneteenth. Well, here's what you have. You have a situation where um, you have some people, even in today's environment, who don't see this, don't understand or see the significance of Juneteenth. And my thing is this: imagine folks who found out that they were free and being told, "Well, it's no big deal for you. Um, why are you making a big deal about being free?" That would sound insane, wouldn't it? Well, the thing is this: for somebody like Miss Opal Lee, who is, I believe, 96 years old, and telling her, well, this is no big deal. We're still not free. And we recognize that we still have a long way to go, and therefore we're not fully free. However, it's a step in the right direction. So, what you do is you take a moment to recognize, celebrate, and pay homage to those who came before you. Now, at some point, I'm going to do a broadcast in July, and it'll kind of tie in to what I'm talking about. But I'm not going to spend too much time on that right now. But I'll deal with that in the not too distant future. But Juneteenth is very significant because, for example, for myself, I didn't know about Juneteenth until I was an adult. And so the thing is, the thing about it, unless you're from Texas, growing up, Juneteenth is not something that was made a big deal about. I mean, during my growing up out on the West Coast, um, we didn't have any Juneteenth celebrations. We didn't have any barbecues at the park and all of that. And here's the other part to that. Juneteenth is something that I believe should be there should be some kind of celebratory thing going on. However, At the same time, it shouldn't be relegated to just a festival. That's a part of it to be sure, but that's not where it ends. It starts and ends. It doesn't do that. It doesn't work like that. It shouldn't be. That's merely a part of it. But also take time to um, spend time with your family on a day like this. You have children, expose them to this part of our history, and maybe watch a movie like Glory that dealt with the Civil War. Maybe watch a documentary um, and that deals with Juneteenth. I think those are the kind of things that we should be doing, but not just as it relates to Juneteenth every year, but also other places, other times as well. I should say, other times as well. So this is something that needs to be done on a regular, and we shouldn't rely upon the school system to tell our history. That's something that should be done in the homes, and it doesn't matter what your level of education is, because you have people who abdicate their responsibility when it comes to this part of our history as well as other parts. And they have double master's degrees, PhDs under their belts. And then you have those who maybe have uh, limited formal education, and they try to soak up as much knowledge as they can. So it all depends. So the thing is this: um, people are people who um, just think those who are on the plantation, you had people who were on the plantation, who born on the plantation, grew up on the plantation, and died in the plantation. Then their next generation, born on the plantation, grew up on the plantation, and died on the plantation. My point of saying that is this: you had those who never thought that they would see freedom in their day, and lo and behold, it eventually happened, and that is what was called the Day of Jubilee, which is biblical, by the way, which is a whole nother conversation. But the thing is that it was important for them to go to get to the next step. And of course, things are not things. I mean, that's just another phase of this, the next level. And you don't just stop there; you continue on. But the thing is that um, emancipation. I'm sorry, not emancipation. Juneteenth um, deals with again when black folk in Texas found out that they were free, and of course uh, after that you had things like, in short order, by the way, what do they call it, um, Reconstruction that took place about about decade and change, and then of course what was typically the case, white folks came along and disrupted that because they had grown accustomed, just the same way you had those who on the plantation who were black, who born into it, grew up in it, and died in it. You had those whites who born into it, grew up in it, and died in it. So that was an accepted norm as far as they were concerned. And so to see after slavery these black folk who come along and get into politics and become sheriffs, mayors, etc. Oh yes, these kind of things actually happen. So I know that was a shock to the system. And not only that, as you know, most black folk coming out of slavery were not able to read and write because it was illegal for black people to learn to read and write on the plantation. So what did they do? Spend time in the cabin with a kerosene light trying to learn to read. And one of the first things they tried to read was the Bible. So you had that going on there. So these are things that need to be understood and recognized. And um, while it was just the beginning, I mean, we've come a long way from where we were back in the day, but of course, we have a very, very long road to travel. And these are the facts. So those people, those of our people who were on the plantation, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. And again, it was a day of jubilee. And when you look at movies like Glory, and when you look at, I mean, just think, if you serve in the army during slavery, during the Civil War period, that's a big deal. Many of them were slaves who were dressed in ragtag, so to speak. And what did they do? They ended up um, uh, having new shoes, having uniforms, etc. So you went from ragtag to uniforms, and that gave them a sense of dignity and pride. And then when you look at post-slavery, you um, now you're a sharecropper, which is a terrible system. It's a system that it's not designed for you to get better. It's designed to keep you in a hole. And so, whether you were an aspiring school teacher or whether you were a sharecropper, whether you were semi-literate, illiterate, or fully literate, when Sunday come, you put on a suit and get dressed up. Or if it didn't have to be Sunday, it could have been um, any other occasion where it was necessary to be dressed up. It gave you a sense of pride and dignity. That was huge. Something that unfortunately a lot of us in today's environment in 2023 have gotten away from. But again, that's a conversation for another day. In fact, that's one of the things I want to discuss on my podcast this summer. And hopefully by that time, get a chance to do a live stream and get some people to chime in on that. But this whole thing is very, very significant. It's very, very important that people know and understand how this whole thing works. But Juneteenth is our holiday. I'm glad that it's being recognized, and those who and what it helps to do, it helps to educate even those who are not a part of our community, who maybe knew very little about Juneteenth, if anything. It gives them a chance to learn. Because the reality is this: anything that takes place in America is a part of American history. Now, Juneteenth, of course, to be sure, is Black history, but it is also um, American history. Because again, anything that takes place in these United States uh, is is American history. So that's important for people to know and understand. But while people are doing their barbecues and parades and all the rest of it, and I welcome all of that. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens 4th of July. That's the kind of stuff that happens in other holidays that are recognized. That's the kind of thing that but just know and understand that in addition to that or beyond that should be proper homage paid to those who are our antecedents who um, live to live to see and make that day happen. And I'll close here by saying that when you study Juneteenth, and I'm talking to the younger folk, it's important for you to know and understand that you have a moral obligation to carry the torch of your ancestors who paved the way for you. And when I say that, I don't just mean just those who look like you. That includes those who are in your family lineage. I don't think that can be stressed enough. Okay, so that's critical. There's no way that um, those who came before you would be happy with the plight of our people right now. And when I say that, I'm talking about the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they think, etc. So those kind of things are very, very important. And just know and understand that you have a moral obligation to do those things that would make those who came before you proud. And also, not only should you carry the torch from those who came before you, but also pass the torch um, down to those who haven't even been born yet. Once they come on the scene, You pull them to the side, educate them, and it really doesn't matter. Um, with this whole controversy regarding critical race theory and what's happening in Florida and what's not happening in Florida and all this kind of thing. I'm not trying to make this whole thing a political thing, but then again, politics only means policy. So the thing is, it's important to make um, uh, to be duty bound and do your due diligence in terms of educating yourself and educating those who are around you, family members, younger children, your peers, etc. Those who are eager or not, well, I shouldn't say eager, but willing to listen. I say that because you have some people who are not willing to listen for whatever the reason. And educate them about those things that are uh, the achievements and accomplishments. And see, when you look at what happened right after slavery, here come Reconstruction. Anybody wants to know about Reconstruction, one of the best books to deal with Reconstruction is Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois's Black Reconstruction. And also, you look at what happened um, eh, during Reconstruction. You can watch Roots: The Next Generation, which is a sequel to Alex Haley's Roots. A lot of people sleep on Alex Haley's Roots and Next Generation miniseries, but it's well worth watching because you see what happened to our people post slavery. And so no one understand what happened with Juneteenth, how Juneteenth came into existence, but also no one understand that when it comes to uh, post-slavery, that's key. Because a lot of times people want to just gloss right over that stuff, and it's critical to know and understand that. So with that, I'm gonna sign off right now, and just I said, just want to give everybody something to think about it. The importance of Juneteenth, why Juneteenth come into existence, and all of that. And we want to give a shout out to Miss Opal Lee. Want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, Miss Lee, for making this happen. And um, your tireless efforts was greatly is greatly the reason why this has now become an official holiday. It's like when Stevie Wonder fought years ago to make Dr. King birthday a national holiday. And that came into fruition in the mid 1980s, I believe 1986, when Ronald Reagan was the president. Um, that didn't just change overnight. That was something that took a little time, but it happened. But when you persevere, things can happen. And so, again, this holiday here should be explained to younger people. It should be explained to other people who may be your age range, or maybe some even older. Because again, um, the lack of knowledge about this holiday that cuts across age lines, that cuts across social economic lines, that cuts across racial lines. You know, so if the knowledge of this holiday can help to make somewhat of a change, then that's great. That's a positive. But we definitely want to remember and salute Miss Opal Lee, who's still in the land of the living, who's 96 years young. And um, it's important, again, to know and understand what happened with Juneteenth and what happened subsequent to Juneteenth and the end of Civil War and all of those things. So, um, all these things I recognize as what? Um, Going in the right direction. And it's important that we not go down in history as being a bunch of ingrates. Because when you go down in history as being a bunch of ingrates, as it relates to the role that those who came before us, given their blood, sweat, and tears, but above all, for the good Lord upstairs to give us an opportunity to do right and to turn around and turn our back on Him, trust and believe, a bill becomes due for that. And the way things are going around right now, one could argue easily that that bill may have become past due. But that's a conversation for another time. All right. So this is your Dr. Soul brother. getting ready to sign off, and look for me possibly on Sunday in case something comes up that I'm not aware of. Look for me on Sunday to do a program, and it has to do with the fact that this is Black Music Month. So it's a program that's going to deal with Black Music Month, but I'm not going to spoil what I have in mind for that. So on that note, I'm going to sign off. Until the next time, God bless.